Hey, and welcome to the John A. McCabe Show, where it's all about accelerating your authority in your business field of expertise by helping entrepreneurs, business owners, authors, experts, speakers get seen, get heard, get noticed on any device, anywhere, anytime in 100 days or less, also known as the Authority Acceleration Formula. Now, my guest today is someone that I had the pleasure of meeting last year when I was in LA. I went down there to see my girlfriend at the time, and I used Airbnb, and I ended up staying at his place for a week. Now, he's such a genuine and hospitable guy, opening up his home to other people and just being so genuine and giving to them. He wasn't home very often, but when he was there, we spent the majority of our time talking about business strategies, his comedy career, as well as his journey into entrepreneurship. Now, Jamarr is a former surface warfare officer in the U.S. Navy, and when I met him last year, he was either working every evening at one of the famous LA comedy clubs, the Laugh Factory or the Comedy Store on Sunset Boulevard, or he was either working there or he was going there honing his craft. Now, Jamarr has performed in front of 20,000 people live in San Francisco recently. He's also appeared on the Katie Couric show, where he talked about the 50 Shades of Grey book or movie. As well as being a trained actor, he's attended several of the stereotypical auditions in Hollywood and has appeared on several different commercials. Now, pay attention to what Jamarr has to say with respect to his time as a comedian and trained actor, and see how he incorporates that into various aspects of his profession into the business world as well as an entrepreneur. Breaking the ice, building relationships, and using comedy at the appropriate times is so key when you're trying to get people to like you, to know you, and to trust you. Because let's face it, people do business with people and people that they like and trust, not do business with a particular brand. Now, he's currently channeling a lot of his efforts into wealth management and tax-free investment planning for both business owners and individuals in partnership with New York Life. Now, that's a recent change for Jamarr since we last met. So we'll talk about his decision to join that organization, how it's impacting his entrepreneur journey. I know he's approaching it in the same entrepreneurial fashion by synthesizing the problem and educating his prospects on the best solutions for them. Now, Jamarr considers the purpose of his life to bring joy to other people, pleasure and happiness to those around him, to learn daily and to achieve greatly, and always follow his divine creativity so that one day he'll be able to inspire 350 million plus people around the world to live their lives with the same passion to exponentially increase the vibration of this amazing place called Earth. Now, when we return, I'll be joined by today's guest, Jamarr John Johnson. So don't go away, I'll be right back. And we're back. So my guest today is Jamarr John Johnson, who considers himself an entrepreneur, a veteran, and a lover, which will be great for all you ladies watching the show today. He's also the host of a podcast show called Verbal Brainstorm and runs his own comedy business where he performs to corporations, colleges, clubs, at fundraisers, and MCs events as well. Now, he also teaches to groups and one-on-one stand-up lessons to sales and marketing individuals to enable them to connect with their ideal target market in a much better way, which enhances their sales and their marketing ability, obviously generating more revenue for them. So please give it up with likes, loves, shares. I want to see a flurry of thumbs ups and hearts going across the screen for my dear friend and my good friend and my guest today, Jamarr John Johnson. Hey, Jamarr, how's it going?
Hey, I'm doing fantastic. How about you?
I'm doing excellent, thanks. How's things down in LA? Nice and sunny today?
It's beautiful, blue skies. Can't complain.
Yeah, you better not complain, because it's when I was down there, every time I go down there, it's beautiful, it's gorgeous. I don't think I've been down there when it rained. It's always nice and sunny, so it's just definitely a great place to be. As I was telling the audience that I get to spend a week at your place, so thanks for that. Thanks for inviting me into your home.
You're very welcome.
And it's such a great place to be. So first thing I want to do why don't we talk about sort of your origin story? Give me like in a few minutes sort of the story of Jamarr John Johnson and how you got to the point you are today. So, I mean, out of high school, you went into the Navy. So just tell me about your journey to get to where you are today.
Absolutely. So I'm on the clock. I've got my stopwatch here going. I'm from New York City, born and raised. I was born in the Bronx, and then I moved to Manhattan, Upper East Side, from the ages of 12 to 18. So those are really the most formative years. Those are the years where I really got to explore. Always been an artist. You know, I used to draw. I learned how to make Jim Henson-style puppets in junior high school. And then when I was 18, I had the opportunity to do some public speaking for an organization called Facing History and Ourselves. And I had the opportunity to speak in front of 2,000 people at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel to fundraise at 18 years old on my 18th birthday. Nice. Double breasted suit. You guys can go to my Instagram at Jamarr J and see the image of that. I think I captured that image, Young Barack. But basically, I got to speak in front of the head of the United Nations, Kofi Annan, and that was kind of my lead into thinking about what was life like on stage, transferring information to people, affecting people in a passionate way. But I didn't have money for school, so I decided that I would leave New York City, I would join the military, and I would earn my way to be able to attend college. Nice. Luckily, I basically received a scholarship from the military, academic scholarship, so I only spent a year and a half in the Marine Corps, and then I was able to go to college as a reservist, where I spent 4.5 years at Auburn University in beautiful Alabama. And from there, I decided to switch from the Marine Corps to the Navy. I traveled over half of the world, all over the Pacific. I've been to Japan. I've been to Hong Kong, Singapore, Guam, Kuala Lumpur, Saipan, Vietnam, all over Malaysia. And basically, it was that first year in the Navy that I discovered live stand-up comedy, and I always felt like I had been a comedian. And I decided to go on that path 11 years ago. So my total time in the military was 14 years, but all throughout that time, I've been thinking about how to be an entrepreneur and how to be a comedian, and that's what brings me to where I am today.
So that was about 11 years ago you entered into comedic life, and then you went headfirst into starting to learn and hone your craft?
Absolutely, 11 years ago.
Okay. Well, what we like to do, Jamarr, on the Johnny McCabe Show, before we get started, we just want to learn a little bit more about you. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a speed round of questions. I'm going to ask you a series of 10 questions. I just want you to think of whatever, couple words or phrase comes to mind. It's just like when you're in school and the teacher gives you a pop quiz. You never studied for it. You don't know what's going to be on it. You don't even know what it's going to be about. So what I'm going to do is rhyme through a series of questions. So we're going to get to learn a little bit more about Jamarr. Okay.
Okay.
So you all ready?
Let's go.
Okay. So name the book that inspired your life the most.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I just sent out a tweet maybe an hour ago. This year, I read the book that I call the book of the year. It's called The Go-Giver, and it really switched my paradigm around how I think about sales and marketing and impacting people. So that right now, I would say is the biggest book so far.
Okay. When you were a young boy, who was your celebrity crush?
You know what? I didn't have a lot of celebrity crushes, but if I had to choose one, because of her ability to write songs and really, transfer power and energy through her words, I would say Jill Scott. She's a little bit older than me, but as a young guy, I really had a crush on her.
Excellent. So what is the book, podcast, or show that you're into right now?
I read a book every day called The Artist's Way Every Day, a daily reader, just for little bits of inspiration, just to remind me that there's a really direct tie-in between entrepreneurship and artistry.
Okay, so who's the most famous person that you've ever performed for?
The most famous person that I ever performed for? Well, I think whenever you know there's a big comedian in the room, you try to do your best. So I was able to make Dave Chappelle laugh his heart out. And there's a guy that is so famous he could afford to walk away from a $50 million deal. So I'll say Dave Chappelle.
Okay. What's your favorite movie of all time?
I would have to say unequivocally The Matrix.
Okay. Are you currently either being coached by anybody or in a mastermind with anybody?
Yes, I do currently have a few mentors. I would say 2 to be exact. And then I am a part of a couple of masterminds.
Okay. So name a person, either dead or alive, who you would most like to meet and have dinner with.
The person I'd like the most, you know what? I would have to say Kanye West right now.
Okay, excellent. Uh, the best business advice you've ever received.
The best business advice I ever received was that it's not about you, it's about the value that you can bring for the person you're there to serve.
Married or single?
Very single.
Very. Emphasis on the very. Okay, this next one's a two-parter. It's the last question. Beer or wine, pizza or wings?
Wine and pizza.
There's a night, ladies, for the very single Jamarr John Johnson.
There we
All right,
go.
some great answers. Jamarr, you have a podcast called Verbal Brainstorm. Now, I was on your website this morning getting ready for the show, and I came across a clip of a very famous funny man, Dave Chappelle, entertaining an audience at your expense. So can you tell us sort of what led up to him actually calling you out in the show and using you as sort of the go-to guy for his comedy act?
Absolutely. So what I would say first is I'll have to correct you. He wasn't making the audience laugh at my expense. It was at my gain.
At your gain, okay.
Because that moment really solidified for me my ability to make someone laugh or my ability to write.
Okay.
What happened was I had went up to San Francisco. I was in Monterey, California at the time. I went up to San Francisco to meet a girl that I met online for a date. And when I went to pick her up, because I'm a gentleman, I parked the car and I get out the car, I go to open up the door and let her in. And we see a line of people standing in the rain to get into some event. So I asked her, I said, hey, what's that line over there all about? She goes, oh, Dave Chappelle's in town. And this is after he just got back from disappearing in Africa. Right. So me being a comedian already, wanting to see greatness while it's still alive, like I don't know if he would still be alive, if, you know, what was happening with his life. I convinced her to go with me. Now, here's the thing. She had already seen him perform before. So rather than me spend, I guess this is our second date, spend our second date together talking, get to know each other, I was able to convince her and sell her on the idea of seeing him again. And how did I do that? I just offered to pay for her ticket. 55 bucks, the best $110, 55 bucks a piece, the best $110 I've ever spent, because it was an 8-hour masterclass as he performed for 8 straight hours. So while I'm at this show, there were some hecklers in the front, and Dave was handling them masterfully for the first 2 hours, and he finally got sick of them, so he asked security to get them out of the show. Yeah. When they left, they created a void right in the front row. Now, by this time, my date had left for the evening. She decided she'd seen him before. She didn't want to sit through another 6 hours. She had to work in the morning. So we hugged goodbye, and I said, I'll see you later. Get home safe. You know, walk across the street. I'm here. So I met a new person. And because of the concept of always growing your funnel in business and always networking, before the show, I was able to network with a few people sitting around me, so they knew I was a comedian as well. And some of them had the bright idea that maybe I should introduce myself to Dave during the show, which is a dumb idea. But I took a little bit of what they said. It was a dumb idea in part. What I did was I moved up to the front row with a random girl that I had met. And instead of introducing myself, I decided to put my business card on the stage over in his right-hand side over in the corner. Yeah. And because he was on stage for so long, 3 hours into the show, 4 hours into the show, he finds this business card. He picks it up. He reads it out loud, and the rest is history. You guys should check it out on my website, IamJamarr.com. It's a hilarious couple of minutes, but that solidified it for me that if I could make a famous comedian genuinely laugh, then I have a right to be in this business. Excellent,
excellent. So can you tell me a little bit about your podcast and the reason why you started it and what you hope to gain from it from an authority perspective?
Yeah, so I would say from an authority perspective, it's about letting people get to know you a little bit deeper in an unscripted manner. The podcast for me is about taking whether it be business ideas or whether it be social ideas and workshopping them and brainstorming solutions, sometimes logical, possible, plausible solutions, sometimes really funny, hilarious, ridiculous solutions. But what I found is that podcasting is like cross-training for stand-up comedians. So if you're only getting 10 minutes a night on stage and it's going to take you 10,000 hours to become a master, how long will it take you to become a master? It will take you an entire lifetime, 100 years maybe. But if you can implement some podcasting, have tons of conversations with interesting people, and really start to develop and hone what your opinions are about things in life that's very crucial for being, a presenter, a public speaker, an entertainer. So the reason why I created the podcast was just to allow myself to get more repetition then, to meet people, to have a reason to speak with them. And I like the concept of finding people in interesting areas of life that you're interested in learning about, interviewing them, helping them get exposure while at the same time you getting to work on your chops.
Yeah, that's very important key. A couple different things that you touched on is very important. One, in order to become an expert authority, a lot of times people don't see the backstory. They don't see all the work that goes into the overnight success. So honing your craft, putting in the time, doing that 10,000 hours, just like you said, if you're only on stage once a week, or a lot of comedians aren't even on stage for once a week, they will never get to that expert level of 10,000 hours. So what is it you're going to do? How are you going to practice? And using a podcast is a great way to hone your skills, to work on your craft, and at the same time to entertain, to educate people, and to build your following, to be able to find sort of your true, authentic self, that people actually are going to like you, they're going to know about you, sort of what you stand for, and then potentially do business with you in the future. And the podcast is a great strategy right now for accelerating any authority, because it positions you as sort of an expert, and by aligning yourself with people of influence, by interviewing people of influence, you're basically borrowing off their influence in a lot of different ways. So